Well, today has been interesting. Not because of any specific events, but just where my brain is going. We've been like a lot of people I run into have been talking about the state of black culture. Whether we have a culture or not. My answer to that, yes. We just may or may not like it. It may or may not be sustainable. It may or may not be healthy. But it is a culture. Shared experiences. How to describe black people in America right now? We're here. We, as a whole, as one unit, we got here under false pretenses. We're treated very horribly for somebody else's greed and laziness. And then we have to fight tooth and nail for every right, every common courtesy that is due to any human being. I don't feel sorry for black people because that's exactly how you get respect that you can keep. You fight for it. If somebody gives it to you, they can take it away, and you become complacent that you'll always be able to do that. So in terms of us, we, did the protests. There was some that, what we never did was wage war. So did they hand us our freedom? Yeah. Because to be honest with you, when the civil rights started, slavery had been over for a while. But somehow there were still laws on the books that disparage black people. So they were still running into prejudice. They were still running into racism. Imagine living through those two periods every single day of your life. One where at any moment you could die, you're treated less than human. The second one, okay, fine. You want to be treated like a human being? Well, what if I come over there and mess it up, huh? And then right now, we're trying to figure out who's right, who's wrong, and all of these different conflicts within the community as a whole. So if we look at black culture as a person, it would be being abused during your childhood in every form or fashion. Now, what I will say is in the past, they may or may not have known what the impact was. The thing is, they didn't care. No one had bothered to figure out if what they were doing was cause abuse. It definitely wasn't neglect. Or maybe there was some in there. But nobody took the time to figure it out. And neither did white people. They were kind of messed up themselves. Can you imagine watching that happen and being told that you're supposed to just understand that that's okay, that's life? That's not a positive thought process either. So I imagine some of them are damaged as well. But, that's for their people to figure out. So at some point, you're allowed to leave home. But where are you going? Because you can't take anything with you. You know how parents treat 18-year-old black kids. Leave everything that I ever bought you. Because you're angry. And the only reason you kicked them out at 18 is because they did something that you didn't like. Your emotions. And now you have an out. If the age of majority was younger, would our kids be kicked out on the street younger? Because black parents have a tendency to put their emotions into their lectures, there are punishments and consequences, there are guidance. And that's not all over wrong, but it's in excess, everything is damaging. Till you are at some point just only working off their emotions. Even the men. Because if they were cold and shut down and they had the ability or the desire to walk away from a family, that's an emotional response too. And it's not a bad thing. Y'all just need to, open up and accept that and look at it for what it is. Y'all got so much truth for black women. Now that's some truth for black men. It was an emotional response. It was a big ass tantrum, storming the fuck off because you not getting something you want. Both sides were wrong. And even if I got the answer right about what actually happened, because, I can't know anything unless I live back there, right? Because every older person that has tried to teach me something has been lying when they tell me all of these stories about why they come up with that. They're all liars, and we can never know what happened back then. Well, it doesn't matter, because whatever it is, we still have broken families. So neither one of y'all conceded. Both sides were arrogant and egotistical. That's what I think. So, after slavery, before civil rights, living that daily life, working for stuff, knowing that it can be taken away, expecting them to say, psych, gotcha, we gonna go right back to slavery. You never know until you have to work hard at accepting that it might not ever, that they might keep their word. You look around every day for clues to figure out whether or not they're getting ready to renege. And if they do renege, do we have the power to do anything about it? Because see, right now you ask people to go out and do something political for our culture. Oh man, listen, it ain't even that bad. We'll be all right. We ain't got to do all that. I got a job. I got kids to feed that you're not feeding with the money. We got to live. I got bills. I can't be missing no work with you. And I just want y'all to realize that the error in that thought process is that that's still them giving you something so they could take that away too. And so if we so free, then how come we ain't doing nothing with it? So, I can see both points. If we're not still being controlled to where it doesn't make logical sense to go out and fight for any rights or be political or, start anything for ourselves, we get a lot of pushback when we say this is what we should do as a culture, because it's a whole lot of people that are complacent in life and they don't see the problem. But they definitely complain about it. They just don't know that they're complaining about that problem. If you live in paycheck to paycheck, you're complaining about that problem. Because if you win the war, you can do whatever you want. And all this stuff that y'all are paying for would be free to us, and we could do, we can do what we want. I'm not calling for one, but, everybody's that's how the conversations are being, brought home. Every time somebody talks, if somebody doesn't understand what's being said, then they compare it to a war. So, the black person as a whole, right? They were abused in every which way possible in childhood, left home at 18 with nothing, worked hard for it, had it taken back once, worked and went through all of the proper channels to get it again, and then finally, when you come back, your parents see you as an adult. But what did you bring back as an adult? A baby. Not a real family, a broken family, or if they are still even together in the same marriage, or even same relationship. There are people who have been together for years and they just haven't made it official completely. So even if you're in an intact family, it's probably dysfunctional. Meaning something about that family is not conducive to sustaining their health and life. Some habit or a trait or a ritual thing that they do is damaging to their relationships and their body. We have a very few intact families that are functional. And when I say functional, what I mean is this dumb idea that we have where you say family over everything, right? The person who did the transgression should have thought about that as well. There's like somebody is going to do something and then think that everybody is just supposed to be okay with it because you're related. If we could stop that kind of stuff from happening, then maybe the families will at least be able to be intact. So before we go, on all of these other trails and this, conquest to find all baby mamas and kill them, and whether or not you're going to take care of the kids if they fathers didn't marry the mama, with all of that, we got something before that. How do the families even break up? There's always these arguments, disagreements. And so we talk about the man having the last say, right? So let's say that they come to an impasse. They don't ever compromise. The man's word goes, right? The reason I don't vote for that is because nothing is 100% fail safe. Not every man cares about the rest of the community. These family members that we don't want to check, after we finally stop them from doing stuff to us, they go out and terrorize other family members. And then if they get hurt, we now have all this attention and have to be on the news when we should have stopped that in the bud in the first place. How many people just let their kids fight one another, or do you stop them and talk to them about why they should choose one another over whatever the thing is? And do you tell them that at some point people get tired and you shouldn't take advantage of it because it might not be there one day when you need to use it? You can't talk to kids and say that kind of stuff if you beating them, taking away things, yelling at them, calling them names, blaming them for everything. Because you can. We need to stop always believing that adults are right, because some of y'all are selfish and evil. People get to choose. If something bad happened to you, do you think that, oh, well, I don't want to be the only person this happened to, so I'm going to go out and make sure and set people up to make sure that it happens to them, so then I won't be such an outcast? Or do you just choose to get up and do something do something else to make yourself feel better? So when you finally come back as an adult, you bring a baby, a drug habit, some bad company, poverty, and probably some type of illness. This is overall, not each individual person. Now, do I think that that's black culture as it stands today? Yes. But why are people making these horrible decisions? Well, you kick a kid out at 18 and you kick him out in anger. What mind frame are you sending your kids out there into the world with? You just got put out. Nothing. You have nothing at that moment. And somebody is telling you you're going to fail, and I'm keeping everything here. I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to let you get anything because you're going to need to come through me one day. I don't have to give you something. If you don't like what I'm doing today, even if it hurts you, then you need your own place. So at 18, they go out and they feel worthless. They feel like they're going to fail. So you know what thought process that gives way to? Recklessness. For what? You don't have nothing to lose? What difference does it make? And sometimes if you get hurt, you might get some perks and benefits that you never got before. But that's what our 18 to 25-year-old people are doing. And a lot of people older that try to talk to them around 18, 19, 20, they don't listen to you. That is because they don't even believe that they deserve what you're telling them. You're using the wrong bait. You can't tell somebody that's been abused their whole life and then kicked out with nothing and disregard and insults. You tell that person to stop drinking, for instance. Why? They're going to say, oh, well, your physical health went, whatever. I ate worse things in my childhood. But you have a bright future. No, I really don't. And even if I do, I'm going to just fail. So I don't want to waste no money. I don't want to waste my time on that. I got a job and a place to stay. Now leave me alone. We send our kids out feeling that way. Some of them are able to bounce back sooner if they get the right combination of a person, an environment, and motivation that they need. But that's 3 things, and that's a hard combination to crack unless you either get lucky or you study and figure it out. So, 18 to 25, everybody's hurting everybody's feelings. Nobody's building anything. Nobody's getting married. Nobody's starting any families. Everybody's just kind of out doing what they want to do, a perpetual party. Even the ones that do go to college. So you bring back all of these things, and now you couldn't hack it. You did fail. So what happens when you get back? More abuse because you don't say anything, because you didn't learn anything out there. It was in vain. So you come back, you need help, you need some place to stay, so you let a lot of things go. But guess who's still hurt behind the way you left? You don't get to still be hurt. Because, of course, according to the person that kicks you out, you chose that, right? So you don't get to still be hurt. But the parent, the adult, does. Because they're hurt that you would rather live on your own than stay there and put up with their mood swings, their destructive behaviors, their belittling and dismissal. Because see, you're still not smart. That was the point. At 18, you weren't supposed to know where to start. You were supposed to give in and shut up. Of course, there's some deficit that you didn't pay attention to growing up that you failed to learn, which meant you would have been okay. Doesn't matter if that's actually true. For some people it's true, for some people it's not. But they're going to say it anyway, and people believe them. Because that's cheaper than letting you crash on their couch. You get told not to trust other black people. That you'll be a fool and you'll look stupid. And that person is going to keep coming back trying to finesse you. So you make friends, but it's a shallow relationship. That does more harm than good. Because now, if you're friends and hanging out with somebody regularly, but you're still distant, if it came to it, you still would choose yourself over them, which is appropriate. But you don't fully let down your guard. So now you think that all relationships, all friendships should be like that. And that's not what it's supposed to be. So you keep going, keep living your life. About 25, let's say, finally, you know what you're going to do with your life. You either have a degree and you're going to work in a field, or you have a different type of job and you know how you're going to start. You have a plan for what you're going to do with it. Or maybe you just have a regular job. It's not necessarily a career, and you're content. So when we're trying to like define stuff and figure things out, we have to understand that it's like three people at least that have to come to this consensus. And then you gotta hope that the outvoted person don't want revenge. All this is predicated on not believing that everybody is trying to fool you or get you. So it's hard in our culture to do, because you were in fact told that, and it was reinforced every time you got yelled at for being close to a stranger. We don't smile and wave at people on the street, because somehow if we wave at them, they're going to come over and hurt us some kind of way. So is that true? No. But if it happens at least once, people feel better safe than sorry, and so then you have to do it to everybody. That makes people upset. They feel offended. And so then they end up doing something along those lines now, because they don't feel like they could be anything better. So from my age range, like, let's say 25, you're working, you're grinding, whatever, raising the kids, kicking habits, whatever. Then you get to 30. So do you keep these friendships? Oh, and like marriage and relationships is included in that too, because they're not blood related. The point is, do you keep these relationships? You can, if you know that at some point in the future you may or may not have it again. That's important, because I think that would like lessen the tantrums that happen when people break up. Every time somebody breaks up, a friendship, a marriage, a relationship, anything, we in the community now get a front row seat to everybody exposing everything that they've seen about this person over all of these years. Does anything happen? No. I mean, like, little small stuff, but the person don't die. So then it's just in vain. What's the point in that? I said earlier that I don't think breakups should be a bad thing. I don't think it has to come to all of that. The reason is because both people are grown. And you know your personal limits, and even if you don't, like, you know your personal preferences, your capabilities. So the thing that happens when people break up is y'all forgot that neither one of y'all said forever. And even if y'all did, so people who are married, at some point, somebody would have conceded. Or maybe it's something that can't be fixed. I don't know. But the tantrum afterwards is what causes damage, because now instead of you just taking a day to be sad and then bouncing back, doing some things that'll cheer you up, you probably have to argue with other people, see whose side everybody take, because it definitely has to go before the jury of the black community. Why? Because one person disagrees. I'm not saying that it's wrong to fight for something that you want, but what I am saying is the certain tactics. Once you have to go below the belt, you're now doing coercion. That person is not choosing you if you have to go beneath the belt. If you can't be on the up and up during the fight for the person, then that is letting you know right there there's going to be nothing but trouble going forward. I think we should apply that to the other stuff too. Jobs, friendships, leisure activities. And when the community is, voicing their opinions on it, first of all, you don't have to have an opinion. You're choosing to have an opinion. So, all right. But then it's four things that could happen. One, you agree with the breakup and you tell them. Two, you agree with the breakup, you don't tell them, and maybe you tell somebody else. And then vice versa for if you don't agree with the breakup. See, people around you then take it upon themselves. They feel that they have the right to do things, to say things, until you hear their opinion and then act on it. Because if the words were enough, they would just shut up. I don't know why we have a tendency to believe that we know other people better than they know themselves. That hasn't worked out for anybody. Sometimes you get lucky. And even then, you still had to do something to make that answer right. So if it was on its own natural causes, it might not have survived anyway. So then, all throughout your 30s, things are looking like they're kind of calming down a little. That is the future. So this is my description of what black culture looks like to me. It does exist. Any group of people, there is a culture, whether we like it or not. I think that a lot of the reckless and self-destructive things that we do on a daily basis, and when people tell you not to, you say, oh, well, I'm having fun. It's okay. It's worth it. You might be. You might be having fun. That's okay. But you wouldn't view that as fun if you wasn't already raised in pain. It wouldn't be fun to you. You wouldn't want to do that. How? Because if you had a appropriate childhood, you would know what your purpose is by now. You would be practicing it. You'd have a vision and a dream to provide that to the world. How many kids in low income areas you think get that? They don't have time to figure out what their talent is. Because the only things we think can lead to big money, which we all feel like we have to have, is it has to do with like sports or, looks or something. It's never by your brain. So a lot of kids that aren't raised in those situations can bounce back easily. But then the kids who were raised there, you feel even more distant. So I think that's where we are, in that 18 to 25 range. If you listen to the pattern and all these discussions that you hear around, we're just now feeling and I would put us at around like 22. Because at 18, you did leave, but you was too busy, trying to get better and get on your feet. Maybe like 19 to 20, you probably end up getting stable. And so stuff looks a little bit less stressful. You get some peace. But you still haven't talked about what actually happened. Up until that point, you're just taking the blame. You just accepted it. You're internalizing it. You feel like, okay, fine, it must be me, because either something has to work out for me and I find a way to be okay. So that means it wasn't me. Or it doesn't, and that means it is me, and so you give up trying to do anything other than all of the immoral things that are going to get you yelled at in the black community. We're just now feeling comfortable speaking to people. Trying to see if any of the other parents in the neighborhood, like the other countries, understand. If they would be willing to tell the parents to stop doing certain things. Do they understand? Would they help? Would they be there for you if, things go worse? Would they encourage you to just not tell? So right now, we're screaming out. And I think that our parent here, the one that stayed, because the dad left, right? Like always. So the government here, I think they hear us. I think they're going to give us some hush action. But I don't think it's going to be everything that we wanted, because even if it is, I'd rather we work for it and get it and earn it outright. I think if we don't, it'll still be like slavery. We notice all of the microaggressions. But what happens is if you've been away from the abusive environment for a long enough time to be okay and show who you truly are, you might look up and find your purpose or a hobby. And sometimes you won't, but you've gotten comfortable with whatever the consequence is. You start realizing that it's not you. And then you want something you've never had. Equality, respect, freedom, appreciation. What are the habits that we have in the black community? If your kid was doing them, would you like it? Would you be happy? Would you just show up handing them money? Or would you still have stipulations? Because they're now a representation of your house. When we go places, we're black American, not just black, not black Asian. So when we go out, people see American and black. So I think our parent is going to give us a little less, because what we would do as parents would be to give the mediocre, bare minimum, and then now, finally, try to help them choose an appropriate path. Now, why couldn't that happen at 18? I don't want to hear parents say, well, these kids grow up and they get disrespectful. Where's the material coming from? How do they have room to disrespect you? See, all of these beatings that we see on social media, they're beating themselves. Even if your child didn't see you doing a bunch of crimes, they still, if they know that you're doing all of that, when they grow up, they're going to try it too. Because you didn't die. They can figure it out. Because you know what's missing? What other parents are doing in order to take care of their kids. They figure it out. And then you get scared and paranoid. So when they come in the house after they've done something that you don't like, who was the one that was supposed to be teaching the child what to do instead? That's an emotion. It's personal. That's not discipline. Discipline has an end and a solution to work to overcome whatever it is. You don't have to live with it forever. So what you see on these tapes is not discipline. That is, in fact, abuse. Because you're using violence against someone smaller than you that has to forgive you no matter what. So you feel free to just break loose in your emotions violently. It's about you feel betrayed, right? You're working 2 jobs. You feel like, how could your kid do that? Well, because they had an idle mind. While you working these 2 jobs, I'm sure there's something that child could be getting into, that they could be doing. So that's the problem I have with those videos. There are free programs. And even if there wasn't free programs, you could talk to them and encourage them to have some project that they like doing that does hold their interest. Because they have to have a reason to say no. And y'all take away their reasons. It looks fake, so people keep going. If you tell me you don't want to help me rob this bank because you just weren't raised like that, I don't believe you, because you didn't flinch around other criminals. And that's just, an example, just a metaphor. People notice what they see and they notice what they don't see. So then they keep going. It's done now. So you can't go back and change it. But what I am saying, that's what a kid's supposed to do. If that's all they raised around, because even if you don't have that in your house, when they go outside, when they go to school, somebody is. Because not everybody is a good parent. Some people are literally using their kids. So it's available. It can be seen. But if they tell you they seen that, what do? Huh? It makes them not want to tell you anything else they've seen. And they try to figure it out themselves, and that goes haywire. Because what happens is, when they tell you they saw something that day that they need questions about, you want to ask them, why were they over there? Now you can figure out where they could have been going, because you can think like an adult, but you didn't tell them that because they think like a child. If you come up with right then what they could have been doing or what they should have been doing, you're wrong. You should have done that before you left. Kids don't just come in here ready to anger their parents. Something is a catalyst for their behaviors at some point. So if they've seen you do a whole lot of stuff, you may or may not have even known that they were watching or could hear. If they see you do all of this, you can't be surprised or want to withdraw your connection to that person. You can't say, oh, well, I didn't raise my kid to be like this. Apparently you did. And whatever other factor it is, I'm sure you either were told by the child or some person, or either you had an inkling, because the stuff that could have been done wasn't getting done. You come home to your kid and the laundry hasn't been done. So what were they doing that whole time? Did you say do the laundry while you're gone? And if you did, you're not thinking about what the kid could have been doing. You're angry because you said something and they didn't do it. There's still a tantrum. So they just look busy and hide it. And they don't tell you anymore. Parents have emotions, yes. But you're shaping another person. So if it's an emotion like anger, it needs to be about something that is actually, that we all agree should make us angry. If it's just something that's arbitrary, take a break first and then talk to the kid. You're supposed to be showing them, if they live by your rules, that this is what life is going to look like. So if you want your kids to do better than you, take them to see some stuff, and then that could be their motivation to get there. So it's a whole lot that parents should be doing. But they can't, because if their kid is in school and nothing happened to their kid today, they're snooping and gossiping about what happened to somebody else's kid that day. So you are essentially showing that you can, play around and do underhanded stuff over your responsibilities. If that sounds simplistic, realize that's what a kid is seeing. So kids that their parents either divorced or broke up, all of that stuff y'all do during a custody battle is damaging. How about as a kid of divorce? I don't want to be brought into it. I don't have an opinion. Y'all need to figure it out. We don't want to be brought in the middle of that. And then sometimes things are exaggerated, and it may not even be even on the up and up. But your kids now have to hear this because you want to, try to, hurt the other parent. For what? So right now we seeing a whole lot of talking back, fighting. So that's why I put us at the age of 22. So I think that when we think about stuff we want to do for the community, we should think about what a 24-year-old would want and need. Do we even have what we want a 70-year-old to look like, and then just work backwards? We're supposed to be talking to them about what happens at the end. But you can't, because you still doing stuff that's going to end up with a bunch of tubes, medications, and bed rest. Doing that instead of showing the kids why they shouldn't. Because you're busy, right? You know, they know that you're not always busy. You just choose to do other things. So, the point of this was just what black culture looks like. All of the group actions and thoughts. The things that mean when even we don't know somebody, we are around them, we have the same reaction to certain things. The other stuff is personality. I know y'all would like to write some things off as personality, but it's not that easy. Because if we just happen to get around each other and expect it or know that, like a script that was already written, then it's part of the culture. Drugs, violence, and incarceration, abuse, neglect. A part of that, even though I don't like having to say that, but it is part of our culture because it's a reflection on what happened to us. We all do it. So if it wasn't part of, now you know what's not part of the culture? Wealth. Because there's not a lot of us that have it. And the ones that do had to do something different than the rest of the community. There's a thing called the collective unconscious. And so what that means is a shared state between everybody involved. What's in our collective unconscious? We all have things that are pushed to the back of our mind that we like to forget, that we like to run from. A lot of it is the same thing. A lot of it has to do with childhood, either with kids or your parents. And then also, we had to hear about a lot of the stuff that happened in the past, and then know that we are not able to do anything to make that right. So if you do feel sad, you got to just sit with that. And if you don't, then you're distant and not connected. So in our collective unconscious is a lot of pain, which means that the behaviors that we're doing that are harmful, that's where they come from. It is in fact part of the culture. Do we like saying that? No. But that's what the reactions are when we interact with other races. It's the things that they see that we all have in common. We don't feel like it's necessary to tell anybody outside of us what we go through. And we have this assumption that they know. They can't know if they've never lived it. It's not something you can know. You can understand, you can sympathize, but you can't feel it as if it was you unless you live through it. So they are not going to ever know all of it. They're going to bumble and make some mistakes. But if we all correct them in the same manner, it now becomes part of the culture. Black people don't like that. So don't do it anymore. Do you correct the person? Do you tell them why? Or do you just go off? Maybe you tell them why and you're respectful, and then they go off. Well, then if that happens a lot with that race of people, then that's part of their culture. So I don't think that y'all need to be trying to write all of these things off, because even though the other cultures don't have as much out of wedlock births and teen moms as we do, it still happens. But other stuff that hurt us is part of their culture. That's where we get it from. I think that it's entirely possible for us to be successful, for us to have positive things in our culture. I think technology and exposing people help bring people together so that they don't feel that so alone. It helps us catch some of the liars, and it prevents other stuff. So even though it's uncomfortable, I do feel like it's necessary, because if you can't be proud of something you've done, you probably shouldn't have done it. And I don't mean like that. What the other thought process is would be regret. I just wish I hadn't done it. So that's not what I'm talking about right now. When I say all of this, it sounds very stoic, very matter of fact, no emotion. But I do. I do have emotions about all of this. And so does everybody else. I'm not telling you to ignore them. What I'm saying is, you're going to stay sad if you make a sad decision. So I'm just telling you to put it on hold for a second. Find out something you need to do. And then you might not even need to go back to being sad. If you get the right type of coping skill. Sometimes you might, but now you got time to do it. I think we should start changing maladaptive behaviors, just like if our life was on the line. It doesn't kill you right now immediately is the only deterrent that we look for. That is mediocre. I'm sure we can find other reasons that could tell us not to do something. You don't have to be afraid of dying, because you're not in control of that anyway, up to a point. You just have to know that it happens. And yeah, logically we know, but have y'all incorporated that into your emotions? No, feeling that death is going to happen one day. Because if we live our life like tomorrow ain't promised, it might not be. But we can promise tomorrow to our kids. But emotions, conflict, pettiness stops that from happening. Because even if we promise them tomorrow, what is it going to look like? What are we giving them for tomorrow? There has to be some motivation. I don't think that people over 45 and 50 should be just giving up all of the time. I feel like that's early. You can still contribute some valuable stuff. You just, got inappropriate expectations. We usually have certain family members that we're not speaking to because they cross boundaries. We usually have some ex somewhere that we absolutely hate. because we found out at the end of the relationship. If you found out in the beginning, it wouldn't have been one. Or maybe it wasn't a deal breaker, and then you saw the light, and now y'all going apart. Either way, it's the same result. Splitting. Not valuing that person as a human being. Do you like when you're walking somewhere and people lock their doors? Do you like people crossing the street? Do you like being a liability in terms of insurance? Yeah. I feel like that's horrible. Because yes, we do reckless things and we are more likely than other races to die, but our premium is higher because you're the person that's doing it and then telling us, okay, but you're damaged, so now we're going to charge you more. We can't give you this bank loan because you got bad credit. Even though we don't want you to go to college. We don't want for you to be happy at your job. So that means I have every right to deny this loan. Black people don't tip well in restaurants. So then you get bad service, and then you don't tip at all. So a lot of this stuff we're ashamed of, but it's the natural progression. What was supposed to happen? What did anybody think the outcome was going to be? Y'all really think we supposed to all have it together by now? I'd be more worried if we didn't have any damage. So, my last thing that irritates me is anytime somebody gets sick, anytime somebody lose weight, gain weight, if they get a new hairstyle, they try out a new style of dress. We are on these social media posts, not even the white people. They're not even the ones that are saying it. Y'all told them a long time ago that they don't get to say it. But all that did was let some of the ones with their high and mighty thought process be the ones to say it. So we see somebody on the news that's black that's doing something that they ain't got no business doing. Why do y'all jump to drugs? Why is that always the first response? Sober people get fed up too. If somebody's not feeling well or they gaining weight. If it's a woman, are you pregnant? Now that's not so bad. But the dumb questions y'all ask after that, like, do you know who the father is? Now nobody's ever, well, people ask, but they were just stupid. Why are these the questions that we always have for one another? I said we needed to start giving each other the benefit of the doubt, because even if it don't work out, now you got the proof. It also has the possibility of working. And if it don't work, at least you tried. You were doing the right thing. They're going to regret messing over somebody that took a chance. So I just feel like if we start doing that, maybe the person would feel like there's something left to salvage of life, and he wouldn't have all of these reckless behaviors. A person that cares about themselves wouldn't do certain things. They would feel that they are a person that deserves comfort, peace, rest, happiness. We tell each other all of the time that we don't deserve nothing, that we ain't shit, we ain't supposed to have shit. And then we tell each other, well, no, that's your fault. Or either, oh, well, this is from slavery. Everything but solving the problem, because what the problem is neither of those things. Are they true? Did they happen? Yeah. But that's not what's keeping us the same. What's keeping us the same is the thing that we're not doing. Looking for the good in us. Helping each other, encouraging each other, respect, guidance. We would have overcame a long time ago if we just treat each other as human beings. A thing that we tend to do is not ask another person what they like or what they would do that day. We don't ask people how they are. We walk up to people and tell them their personality by some arbitrary thing that you noticed in their environment, and that means now all of a sudden you know this person through and through. That shouldn't happen. The thing that we're not doing, that we should be doing, is asking people who they are. Well, what if they lie? Yeah. The punishment is the lie. You tell me you need help with something, and if you're lying, you're not going to get anything to help with whatever it is you were supposed to be doing, or what you really needed help with. And that might be a lesson that some people have to learn. But they wouldn't have to learn if we teach them and we show them as they're growing up. They'll already know the answer to that. So, okay, I guess I'm done for today. Is this common knowledge? I don't know. No clue. But if you're watching this, you can't say I didn't tell you.